Skye, let me ask you something right now, and be honest.
Always.
The last time someone asked you, how was your weekend? What did you actually say?
Aiden, I said good. Maybe twice.
Exactly. And that right there, that single word, is costing you more than you think. Not just in English, in perception, in presence, in how people read your level of sophistication before you even finish your sentence.
That's a strong claim for one word.
It's not about the word, Sky. It's about what the word reveals. When high performers answer that question, they don't fill silence. They create narrative gravity. And today, we're going to show you exactly how to do that. Welcome to English Peak.
Chapter 1. The Psychology of the Blank Mind.
Here's what nobody talks about. When someone asks you about your weekend in a second language, your brain doesn't go blank because you're not fluent enough. It goes blank because you haven't built what psychologists call cognitive residue, the mental trace that links your lived experiences to ready-to-use language.
Cognitive residue. I love that. So it's like you lived the weekend, but the memory isn't connected to the words yet.
Precisely. Think of it like a filing system. You had the experience, the folder exists, but in a second language, the label is missing. So when someone opens the cabinet, boom, empty fans.
And native speakers don't have that gap because they've been labeling those folders since childhood.
Exactly. So what's the fix? You don't wait for the moment. You build the language before the conversation happens. You preload the vocabulary into the experience itself. That's why today's episode is engineered around a real conversation. Two people, two completely different weekend philosophies, so your brain can absorb the language inside the story, not outside it.
Because the brain retains narrative far better than isolated vocabulary lists.
That's the compound effect of immersive listening, Sky. Every time you hear a phrase inside a real emotional context, the retention multiplies, not linearly, exponentially.
All right, so we have two characters today. Let's call them the strategist and the spontaneous one.
The strategist runs her errands on Saturday afternoon, deliberately, methodically, so her Sunday can breathe. She treats her free time like an asset to be protected, not a gap to be filled.
And the spontaneous one?
He hears the word coffee and ends up judged by cows on a random hillside.
Aiden, that is extremely specific.
It happened, and we will get there. But first, Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. The Language of High-Value Weekends.
Here's what separates B1 English from C1 English when you talk about your time. It's not grammar, it's lexical precision, the ability to name the texture of an experience, not just its surface.
So instead of I had a good weekend, you describe the quality of the moment.
Right. Take the phrase low-key. When something is low-key, it's calm, understated, deliberately simple, not boring. There's a difference. Low-key is a choice. Boring is a default.
Like the strategist's Saturday morning, quiet room, slow breakfast, a little music. She wasn't being lazy, she was being intentional.
Intentional recovery. That is actually a productivity concept. Top performers don't rest by accident. They schedule it with the same discipline they schedule their work. Because rest without guilt is a skill.
And she built that guilt-free rest by doing the work first. She ran her errands, supermarket, laundry, household tasks, so that by evening her brain had cleared the debt.
Run errands. Write that down, or better, just absorb it. When you run errands, you execute small but necessary life tasks outside the house. The bank, the pharmacy, the dry cleaner. It's not glamorous, but the people who do it consistently, those are the ones who never feel like they're drowning on Sunday night.
And then she rewarded herself with a movie night. Home cinema, blankets, popcorn, pause the film every 15 minutes to debate the plot.
That's not a distraction, that's social leverage. Shared experiences create conversational capital. You build connection not just by going out, but by creating a contained, memorable moment with people you trust. Now, the spontaneous one. Give us the full picture, Aiden.
It started, as these things always do, with the words, just coffee.
Iconic.
One friend became two, two became a group chat in real life, everyone talking over each other, nobody checking their energy, nobody checking their wallet. And then a cousin appeared, persuasive, dangerously calm, looked at the sky and said, "The weather is perfect, let's hit the road."
Hit the road. That's such a confident phrase. It's not let's drive somewhere. It's a declaration.
Exactly. When you hit the road, you commit to movement. You're done deliberating. And that's the psychological profile of the spontaneous decision maker, someone who operates on a whim.
On a whim, doing something suddenly, in the moment with zero pre-planning. Not reckless, just immediately responsive.
Right. And there's a real cognitive benefit to it. When you act on a whim, you bypass the overthinking loop. You skip the analysis paralysis. You just go. The risk is that you end up in front of a farm personally judged by cattle who did not ask for this.
Aiden.
But you also end up sitting on a car hood at the top of a hill, listening to a song from your school days, feeling nostalgia so deep it almost hurts.
Nostalgia. That word is doing a lot of work right now.
Because nostalgia isn't just sentiment. In communication, when you trigger nostalgia in your listener through a story, a detail, a specific song title, you activate their emotional memory. That's one of the most powerful engagement mechanisms in any conversation or piece of content.
The shared feeling creates the connection.
Big feelings, small hill. That's the whole episode in 4 words.
Chapter 3. Making the most of it. The elite mindset.
Here's the phrase that anchors everything today. Make the most of it. And I want you to hear it not as a cliche, but as a strategic orientation. When you make the most of a situation, you leverage the conditions you have, not the conditions you wished for.
Which is exactly what both characters did in completely different ways.
The strategist made the most of Saturday's productive energy to protect Sunday's peace. The spontaneous one, locked out of his own apartment on Sunday afternoon, standing in the hallway holding a trash bag.
Wait, he locked himself out.
Keys inside, phone inside, him outside.
That is a catastrophic Sunday.
For 30 seconds, yes. But here's what happened next, and this is the part I want you to hold on to. When he finally got back inside, instead of writing off the day, he pivoted. Meal prep, laundry, clothes ironed and hung for the full week. He extracted value from the wreckage.
That's resilience with execution, not just bouncing back, rebuilding with intention.
And by Sunday night, he was wiped, completely drained. But it was a different kind of tired. Not just the social exhaustion of Saturday's road trip and late-night gathering. It was the productive fatigue of someone who made a choice to not waste the day.
I'm wiped. That phrase, when you say it with real weight, it communicates something raw and honest. Not just I'm tired. It means your reserves are at 0.
And knowing the difference between those 2 levels of tiredness, that's self-awareness, which is ultimately the foundation of every language skill we teach at English Peak. Because the best English speakers aren't just technically accurate, they're emotionally precise.
Skye, before we go, the word tour.
Yes, 10 phrases, fast, clean, memorable. Low key, catch up on, run errands, I'm wiped, make the most of it, on a whim, hit the road, nostalgia, spontaneous, persuasive.
These aren't just vocabulary words, Aiden. They're signals. When you use them naturally in conversation, people recalibrate their perception of your level instantly.
That's lexical credibility, and it compounds. Every phrase you own with confidence adds to the overall impression of fluency. Even if your grammar isn't perfect yet, language is perception management as much as it is communication.
So the next time someone asks you, how was your weekend, you don't say, good.
You say, honestly, it was low-key, but I made the most of it. And then you let the story follow naturally because now you have the language to carry it.
And which team are you? Stay at home or let's go?
Or, like the most sophisticated answer, both, depending on what the moment demands.
That's the real flex.
If this episode sharpens something for you, subscribe to English Peak. because this is where language stops being a subject and starts being a competitive advantage. Skye, same time next week?
Already on the calendar. Let's go.